This problem comes from the practice problems I sent out, additional practice problems that I sent out in the second email, and this is question 5. And I'll start reading it, but I've included something here from the top of the page that says the average American sleeps for 8 hours with a standard deviation of 1.5 hours. This information tells me something about my population. It tells me the average hours, which is 8, so I'm going to say this is my mu. And it also tells me the standard deviation, which is 1.5. And then the actual problem says, what is the probability of selecting a sample of 64 Americans that sleeps for an average of 8.2 hours or less? So here, now it gives us a sample. And it gives me an n, which is 64. And it also gives me an average, an m, which is 8.2. And it's asking me what is the probability of selecting a sample that has an m of 1.2 or lower. So essentially, I'm going to need to create a distribution of sample means using n's of 64, because my sample has an n of 64. So we know that this is a bell curve because n 64 is greater than 30. We know that the expected mean is whatever my mu is, which in this case is 8. And then the third thing is the standard error that I'm going to calculate. Here, standard error equals standard deviation over the square root of n. And so my standard deviation is 1.5. I'm going to take the square root of 64. And I'm going to leave this as 0.19. So that's my standard error. Now I'm going to locate my sample, and I'm going to use red to locate this sample here. 8.2 is about here. And I want to know the probability of getting 8.2 or less. So I'm going to shade this way. And this here is the farthest tail. So I know I'm going to use column B. I also know that 8.2 has a z-score. And I figure out this z-score using z equals m minus the mu over my standard error. My m is 8.2, my mu is 8, and my standard error is 0.19. And this comes out to 1.05. Okay, so this here is my z-score. So I'm going to put this z-score under 8.2, 1.05. And so z-scores I can figure out in column A. So I have 1.05, and I'm going to cross-reference it to its column B. And column B tells me that it is 0.8531, or in other words, 85.31%. So from this point to the end, I am covering 85.3%. And so the probability of selecting a sample of 64 Americans that sleeps for an average of 8.2 hours or less is 85.31%.